I've always been a person that gave so much of herself to so many people at the cost of my own happiness. Allow people to do and say whatever it is they like, while I painfully sat in silence. And although that may be true, you see, this is not new to me. I've been here, but maybe you never seen me. I was voted one of the top 10 female artists in Murder Dog magazine with the likes of Queen Latifah, Lil Kim, MC Lyte, and Foxy Brown. Then called out of darkness to self-publish 2 books From Pain to Power and Power Her Foe. I host my own power gala that recognizes the greatness in people. I was a radio personality and now the podcast host of Oh Well with Zeeda Michele. I'm a mom, a wife, a sister, a mentor, a minister, and a friend. For as long as I can remember, I always suppressed my emotions, silenced myself, never speaking up or speaking out about how I felt and who I was. When I was locked up, an older lady said to me, "Baby girl, if you ain't got nothing to say, don't say nothing at all. But when you do, say it loud, say it with confidence, and say it with conviction." This is the freedom of speech.
Miss Zeeda.
Charlie?
Thank you so much for taking this time to sit with me. I am super excited because, you know, I love you. I absolutely adore you. You are such a phenomenal woman. You're an actor, you're an author, you're a musician, you're a you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a minister. Like, what else do you not
Don't forget
do?
glamour.
And then she's beautiful. I told you that earlier. It's like time kind of just went backwards for you.
I hope it keep going backwards.
No, I absolutely love it. But like for me, I really wanted to talk to you about the purpose of this project.
Okay.
To give people a chance to get to know you a little bit more. But why and what was the passion behind this project? But before we get into that, you've been doing music for a while.
Uh-huh.
A long while. I know we were talking about that a little bit earlier in that, you know, you don't want to date yourself, but how long have you been doing music?
Actually, I started in 1987 in the Fisher Housing Projects in the abandoned houses. That's where my love for music literally started. In the projects.
In the projects. Was it like one of those things that you had somebody you were looking up to and they were doing music and you were like, I want to do that? How did that happen? Come on, give us a little bit.
You know, behind every little girl's influence, there's a little boy.
Yeah, sadly.
And there was a guy and they had a group called the Low Down Boys and I wanted to be a low down girl.
You wanted to be a low down girl.
I wanted to be a low down girl. So literally, we kind of mimicked what the guys were doing, but in a female, you know, from the female aspect.
Yeah. During this time, were you pursuing like Christian hip hop, or were you mainstream? Because I know you had a mainstream career prior to actually going into this. So what was it?
It was definitely not Christian because at the time I wouldn't been able to tell you what a Christian was.
Yeah.
Like literally, like the Fisher Project, the Fisher Housing Projects at 14 or 15 or 16 was not music for me, you know. I was literally drinking 40 ounces and breaking in houses and stuff like that, not really into the whole music thing. The music thing came after that, so it wasn't until I actually started dating this guy that I really started getting into music, and I did not understand where it would bring me or how serious I would get about it.
Yeah.
You know.
When you talk about the seriousness of music, what was it that brought you? I know you said you were introduced to music by a young man, but what was it that actually kept you connected to the music? Because a lot of people say that it's like their form of self-expression. Was it like an escape for you? What was it?
At that time, like, at that age, that early on, for me, it was just, I've always been the shy one in the crew. You know, even in the crew of thieves and drug dealers and stuff like that. I've always been the shy peacemaker in the group. So I literally wanted to kind of like be seen, but not really be seen.
Yeah.
So it was more or less, okay, I can do this. This will make me visible, but not necessarily an emotion or anything connected to it at that time.
Yeah. So for you, it was, I just need to be seen. This was my bit of identity.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we're talking identity. At what point did you feel like you identified with being an artist?
At what point did I identify with being an artist? I would say that didn't come until like 2000,
What was
the
going on
year
at that
2000.
time?
But even in that, even at that point, it wasn't really like a true identity. It was more or less something that I made up in my head
Yeah.
that would define me or identify me. Because you got to keep in mind, back then you had the Queen Latifahs, the Foxy Browns, the Lil Kims. So I identified with that. So that made me come and say, okay, I'm going to be like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk like that. I'm going to act like that.
And what was it about them? Because when you think about them, they stood for not just music. A lot of the time it was more social issues. So it was women's voices being heard. It was allowing them to see that black females could do such and such and such and such and still be able to be relevant. What was that? What was it about that persona that connected to you?
It was different levels of different things.
Okay.
Now, the first female that I actually saw out there like doing her thing and being recognized and was popping was Queen Latifah. So Queen Latifah had this voice and she had this swag, and it wasn't the girly stuff like Foxy and Lil Kim came later.
Yeah.
So Queen and Light were the ones that I was like, yeah, I was running home to go watch Yo MTV Raps.
Yeah.
I was running home to watch The Basement with Tigger and stuff like that. So I was running home, and I would literally, like in my head, I would imagine myself on stage, or I would stand in front of the TV or the mirror, and I would visualize myself being in that space,
Yeah.
being creative and seeing that and those different things. And a lot of people don't, like rappers like Finesse and Sequence. People don't remember rappers like that. But I was so heavy into the art of it, and just not just the art of it, but the women involved in it. So that was my thing. I liked all the guys. I liked Ice-T. I liked all them and stuff like that. But it was something about the girls.
Yeah.
And it made me want to, I need to be a part of that. I needed to be a part of that. But my identity was still out there swimming somewhere, like swim, Nemo, swim.
Yeah.
I was still trying to find myself.
Yeah, okay. You go from, and this is me building, right? So you go from being a young, impressionable girl, fall in love with music. You're like, I can do this. I want to do this. And you have this image of women who are self-empowering, strong. And then you have a mother who is, independent and working and doing all these things. Then you find yourself in a situation where you have to shrink again and kind of hide.
Yeah.
How do you come out of that?
I've never been asked that question like that. So, like, it literally puts me into a place now where I really have to now reassess those feelings and then actually tell you where I was. So that's good. It's kind of like therapy here. So for me, back then, being pregnant at 16, I hid it from my mama for 4 months. It wasn't until she made my sister bring me to the clinic, and she said, bring her to the clinic because I think she's pregnant. And we walk like 10 blocks to the clinic. And I'm lying all the way to the clinic. And it wasn't until we were like a block and a half from the clinic that I finally just broke down and confessed that I was pregnant. and I had to go back to school pregnant.
Yeah.
And my friends had to know I was pregnant,
Yeah.
which then in turn told everybody that this little girl was doing something with a little boy that she wasn't supposed to be doing. And I can remember hiding under the bed when my mama was saying it was time to go to school, sticking safety pins in my stomach saying, I don't want a baby, I don't want a baby
Wow.
at 16. So in that moment, it was like, who am I? Like, everything that I wanted to do or everything that I thought I could possibly do, even in the realm of music,
Yeah.
died when I found out I was pregnant. So it wasn't even, music wasn't even on my radar at that time because I'm pregnant. It's over.
Okay. So we go from being young and impressionable
Mm-hmm.
to identifying with a dream.
Okay.
And then you see the end goal and you see what you want. You see the type of woman you want to be, but then reality shrinks you back.
Yep.
At what point did love for music come back into the picture?
That's interesting because at that point, pregnant, my mom ended up, taking the full, of course, I'm only 16, so she took the reins of grandma raising me and raising a baby. So it's like having an extra kid of her own.
Yeah.
And so I was afforded the opportunity to still be a teenager. So I still went out and I did things that a teenager did, and I got in trouble and did all those other things. So I would say a couple of years after that, I started getting involved heavy in dealing drugs and stealing cars and stuff like that. And I got caught up on a charge, and I went to jail. Got caught up on a charge. I did some time in jail, and people would say prison is gonna make you or break you.
Yeah.
It broke me. So my brother at the time had started a label, a record label, a local record label in New Orleans. And before I went to jail, he would say, I want you to come, rap on my label. And I'm like, a rap, I'm a hustler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was literally like hustling. I'm not a rap, I'm a hustler. And then when I finally got out of jail, it's like, you want to go back? Or you want to really like try your hand in this music thing? So that's when I would say around 93. That's when music came back on the radar.
So within a 6-year span, you go from introduction to the love affair to the abandonment to I got hope now.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in 1993 that really kind of took you over the edge for your career? Because you went from, okay, yeah, I think I could do this. I think I like this. Oh, I love hip hop. Da 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 da. Okay, I got in trouble. Let me try this, my hand at it. And then it became a way of life for you.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I didn't want to go back to jail.
You wanted your freedom.
I wanted my freedom. I did not want to go back to jail. So it was like, figure this out. Like at that time, I had no skills.
Yeah.
I had no skills.
Yeah.
I had no education. So it was just literally go back, steal cars, go back, sell drugs, or do this music
Yeah.
and make a little money. Because my brother was saying, you can make money doing this.
Yeah.
Now, I recorded an album. It was called The Player for Life. I recorded the album. And after we recorded the album, funny because as an artist, you got to perform.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, Big Daddy's booked you for a concert. I'm like, I'm not doing no concert. I'm not doing no concert. I didn't sign up for this part of it.
Yeah.
And he was like, you have to do a concert. And I was like, nah, I ain't doing that. He said, they're going to pay you $1,000. I was like, let me figure out how to do a concert.
Okay, so you come back into music. You're like, you don't have this skill per se, but you just knew that at this point, like it's either this or it's it. Like I don't have any other options. Now we go back into the life cycle again
Uh-huh.
of out of self-preservation, you get into a situation where you're like, okay, I have this gift. I need to use it because that's all my only option, right? And then you have to find the love for it again. Yet you're still the person who wants to shrink into the background and still be a little bit hidden. That first performance, what was the reality that you had to go through?
The first performance was a bunch of gin and juice because I was petrified. I'd never been on stage before, and I'm in a bar room full of people drinking and smoking, and I got to get on stage and perform.
Yeah.
I've never done that before in my entire life. I only saw it in my head watching your MTV Raps in the basement and stuff like that. Never. So it was a lot of tossing of the gin and juice back. So by the time I did my first performance, it was just all a blur because Tom Collins and gin and juice got me through it.
What happened to that image that you had in your head before? The MC Light and the Queen Latifah?
It was, I believe it was still there, but I believe I buried it. You know, I buried it because at that time, like, you know, when you grow up like I grew up in a big family, number 7 out of 8 kids.
Jeez.
Yeah. So everything is just everything is just moving. And I grew up in a household where you will fight. And I love you would be, you ate? And I'm like, yeah. Oh, we back. We cool. We love each other.
Yeah.
Or we fight, and then you go outside and get into a fight, and then I'm coming outside jumping in a fight. That was the whole I love you aspect of, you know, of the household that I grew up in. So I never really had a voice or or someone to sit me down and say, this is the, you know, there's still hope for this, you know. Even with my nieces and you know, my daughter, or just the average everyday 16-year-old that would get, you know, probably end up pregnant. I see myself talking to those people now and telling them, you know, like there's a school in Midland, Texas. Can't remember the name of it. It's full of pregnant girls. And they sent me to the school to talk to them. And I'm like, if someone would have told me when I was 16 that this is not the end, life isn't over, you still can pursue all those dreams and do all those things that you would do, I think that my career probably would have took a different turn.
Yeah.
But I just know God had a different plan.
Yeah. So speaking of a different plan, so you finally got your foot into the industry, right? You're like, I can do this. And then you make a name for yourself because you were with a local brand. So you were in New Orleans. And so people knew Zeeda. Did you go by Zeeda?
I did.
Okay. So people knew who Zeeda was. They were like, Zeeda this, Zeeda do music, Zeeda do this. They probably could rap your lyrics back to you, right? And then God goes, I think we want to go a little bit bigger. At what point did you start hearing God pull on you and kind of switch you out of mainstream hip hop into inspiration or Christian hip hop?
It was so many things had transpired. You know, I did a joint project, well, not a joint project, I did a feature on Down South Hustlers, one of the volumes with Master P. I did a song on that. Then I was voted with the top 10 female artists in Murder Dog magazine with MC Light, Queen Latifah, and Foxy Brown, all the people that I imagined myself. Yeah. And so I'm voted with these people in the top 10.
Yeah.
And so when I remember going to this church, and my sister invited us to this church. And when she invited us to this church, it was like, it's just weird, you know, for me at the time. The man was a prophet, and he started to prophesy to us, and he was telling me, you know, the things that God wanted for me and all this other stuff. And I was like, this this some kind
This
of
ain't
hoodoo
it.
voodoo
This
kind
ain't-
of stuff. I ain't feeling this. But I left that night feeling different. I left that night feeling different, and I left that night pondering on maybe I should try this. And we all had came together as a label after that whole church experience, and we decided that we weren't going to make cursing music.
So it went from, all right, we for the streets. Now we just gonna clean it up just a
We're
little
going to clean
bit.
it up. We still going to kill everybody. We're going to
Yeah.
shoot them up. We're going to drink. We're going to do all this other
We just
stuff.
ain't
We
gonna
just ain't going
cuss
to
no
cuss
more.
them. We ain't going to curse them.
Yeah.
And we're not going to kill them.
Okay.
So that was that.
Okay.
So I did a project called Platinum Bound. I'm just this ghetto chick with this ghetto style. Drive a ghetto brother wild with my ghetto smile and my ghetto ways in these ghetto days. And it's time to get staged. Getting paid, making money on the stage. About to go plat, baby. Pockets fat, baby. So no cursing or none of that. But I'm still this ghetto chick with this ghetto style. And I'm going to shoot you and I'm going to kill you and I'm going to take your money while you're sleeping and all this other stuff. I'm just not gonna curse you while I'm doing all that. I'm not gonna do all that. So that was the beginning of the turning point. That was the beginning of the turning point where you could feel like God tapping on your heart, saying, "It's time to come in.
Yeah.
It's time to come in."
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't answer the call right away.
Mm-hmm. So what was that awakening? What was the moment of awakening?
Prison. Like that at that point, it was almost like this is do or die now.
Yeah.
This is do or die. Like you got to change. You really got to change. Like there are kids involved now.
So was it prison when you were younger, and then you went back?
When I was younger, it was more or less becoming pregnant was the thing that was the thing that was like,
yeah,
chill.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I got in the game and I started, my level of boyfriends were, their dealings were way bigger than the mediocre girl. I'm on a corner kind of drug dealing guy. It's like get on a Greyhound with your boyfriend with kilos of cocaine and, go make deals and stuff like that. And so it wasn't until after that point when I went to prison, then it was like, you got to change something.
Yeah.
You got to change something. So I came out and my mind was like, you can't do this again. Like you can't do this again. At that time I had bounties on me. The bounty hunters were looking for me. And my mama was calling saying, they're going to catch you. They're going to catch you. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. And I ran for like a year before they caught me. And when they finally caught me and I went to jail, it was kind of like, at that point, it was like, okay, when you get out of here, you got to do something different, something totally different. And so that's when my brother initiated the whole music thing. But then as time progressed and we started going to church, that's when the turn came. The turn came. I was, there was a point before when we were cleaning it up, where Bad Boy was looking, at one of the A&Rs, and Bad Boys was interested in my music on a crazy style because they sent music on one of the other male artists from the label. I was just doing the recording on the phone, and they called the record label to talk about the male artist, and they get me on the voice recording. Yo, what's up? It is Smoke One Records and blah, 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 boom, boom, bam. And they say, okay, we like the guy, but who's the girl on the answer machine?
Yeah.
Does she rap? And he was like, yeah. But when they got ready to do the meeting or whatever they were going to do in regards to the album, the A&R got arrested. So I never made it to Diddy's door.
So it's like your journey has been a lot of trying to make it happen on my own, trying to do it on my own, and the guy's like, nah, let's try something else.
Yeah.
So when you talk about freedom of speech, what exactly are you talking about? Freedom, is it freedom of my will? Is it freedom of my insecurities? Is it freedom of my past? What is it?
It's freedom. Freedom. because freedom overall, because like I said, being number 7 of 8 children, it's, being molested at 7, then being molested at 9, then being pregnant at 16, then going to prison, then doing things that I didn't want to do because I wanted to be liked that by people that probably didn't even like me. Sharing myself in such a way that people didn't deserve it. Not speaking up or speaking out for myself, not just in the streets, but even in the church. Suppressing who I was, suppressing who I am for the fear of judgment, for the fear of criticism, for the fear of not being liked, or being unloved, or for the fear of just so many fears and so many anxieties. And it just got to the point to where I knew when I got the first track, I knew when I heard that MC Light, that sample, I knew what the name of the album was going to be. Because at that point, I had, like, the last 2 years of my life has been so chaotic, even in my walk with God.
Yeah.
Like, I backpedaled. I was angry at God. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to go to church. Leaders had let me down. Authority figures that had let me down. People that I thought I can go to and express myself to, the safe haven, the religious institute. I felt like all that had failed me.
Yeah. And
I allowed that to dictate my feelings toward God. So I didn't want to hear no worship music. I don't want to pray.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to God. I want nothing to do with God.
Yeah.
I want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
I know better. When you know better, when you know the word, you're accountable for it. I don't want to hear the word.
Because you don't want to be held accountable.
I don't know about it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be accountable for it. So I had finally gotten to a place to where it was really time for me to face some demons and face some darkness that I was dealing with. And I did. And I didn't do it in the best ways possible, and I didn't do it in the most effective or efficient ways possible. And so that's when I heard the track, and the freedom of speech dropped in that. It was like God said, this is the name of the album. So I said, I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about everything I want to talk about, and I don't care who don't like it. Talk like this, walk like that, pimp my gift like Return of the Mac, take my ties, make it rain Cadillacs, preach the itching ears, leaving out all the facts, red carpet church, the celebrity section, talking we a body, half the church got infection. No, I'm going to say it. And although I have pastors that love me and support me and know me, they also know my backstory. They know I had they know I had dealt with church hurt. They know I had dealt with hurt in my personal life, and so they didn't take offense to me saying those lines.
Yeah.
They just understood that it was something that I had to see.
I think when you take ownership of, and you said something that I thought was very interesting. When you read the word, you have to hold yourself accountable. Mm-hmm. But when you take ownership of that freedom of holding yourself accountable versus someone else doing it for you, you speak a little different. Mm-hmm. So I think it was perfect the way that your lyrics were just kind of, they weren't out of a boldness based off of someone else, but they were a boldness based off of who you knew God to be for you. Mm-hmm. So when you, which I love. So this album, because I love it, I'm like, oh my God, she's got so many different influences. And it's kind of like you are telling a story without telling a story by the influences of the music itself, right? So we do get that MC feel, that female MC feel, but then we get also the Spanish influenced feel. Then we get the mob mafia family feel. So I want to go through a few tracks with you actually. Okay. So You Love Me. Tell me what was inspiration for You Love Me?
There was a lot of things, personal stuff. Not only personal stuff, but you know how you get to talking to your girlfriends and they start talking about their relationships, or they start talking about what it is that they're going through with their man and all this other stuff. And when I first heard the track, it was like, oh, this is the track for you to talk some stuff for your girl.
Yeah. What I like about it is it talked a lot about that self-worth, that queendom that we like to call it, and accountability and partnership. So when I think about it in mirroring your life, it's like this was the perfect reflection or the aha moment of freedom from where you started.
Right? Absolutely.
You started with your identity being lost within a young relationship, right? And it's almost like a letter to yourself. You know, when they always say, what would you tell your 17-year-old self? What would you tell your 16-year-old self? When I heard You Love Me, it felt like, oh, she's talking to herself. So it was like you were going through every stage of your life and freeing yourself. Is that what you were going through?
Oh, we talking about the track with "Cause You Love Me." Yeah, because growing up and being a woman and being a young woman and being a teenage woman, being a teenager, a teenage young woman coming into your own, you experience all kind of relationships and you go through all kind of relationships, and then you find yourself doing things that you said you'll never do or saying things that you'll never say, and then you have your ice cream, eat my ice cream and watch my chick flick moments, and then all of a sudden you be like, you know what? Let's just talk about it. You say you want a queen, but you ain't got a crown.
Yeah.
You say you want a rider, but you can't be down. So it's kind of like you saying you want all this, but you're not reciprocating it. But then on the other hand, girlfriend, you saying you want this, but you're just settling for anything.
Yep.
So yeah, that song was kind of like, that's the one for the women to be like you said, aha.
It's like that. It's as soon as you're listening to it, you're like, wait, girl. It's that accountability that we were talking about.
Yep.
You say, hey, this is the type of woman I want to be in the world. This is how I want to be represented. But this is what I'm doing, and this is how I look, right?
And a lot of times that's what we deal with behind closed doors, even on our social media pages or in our declarations and all the good, the stuff that sounds good that we say.
Yeah.
And then behind closed doors, it's like, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about La Familia. La Familia. I love the and you have this one and you have Stronger, which has that, I guess La Familia will be more of that like mob style. I told you I love
the mob.
I love a good mob vibe. I'm here
mobbing Jesus.
Look, we mobbing in Jesus, family strong, but I love it. Give me the inspiration behind that, because I know your husband is also an artist as well.
Yeah.
And so it's great to be able to see you guys kind of work together. And on this track, you guys were able to collab. What was that process like?
Well, what's crazy about it is, shout out to D. Walla House Productions. He did the entire album.
Yeah.
And when he sent the track, we were actually out looking for a house, like house hunting. And he sent the track, and when he sent the track over, it was like, the track was playing.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in a car, parked out in a car, waiting for like a realtor to show up. And the track is playing, and Gifted wanted to say something, and I was like, shh, don't talk. I'm in this now. I'm in it. And so in that moment, the first thing I heard when I heard the track was La Familia. And so at that moment, my sons, my oldest son and my middle son, they rap. They rap. It's not Christian rap, but like I said, I never judge people walk. I wanted to give them the opportunity to be free and say what they wanted to say. Didn't box them in and say you have to say Jesus every other line. Didn't say you have to talk church talk or none of that. And their dad also gave them the same message, like you don't have to do all that. So when I heard La Familia, I was like, oh my God. Let me call my son.
Yeah.
So I pick up the phone and I call my oldest boy, and he was like, I got you, Ma. And I was like, all right. Then I called my middle son. Middle child syndrome, more of the quiet one, real laid back. Nah. Okay, I'll do it. And so, of course, when I heard it, I was like, all right, it's a family song.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to lead it up, I'm going to come in, then the boy's going to come in after that. And my excitement was just through the roof because, Gifted and I, we always rap together. You know what I mean? At some point, we share the stage, we do something together.
Yeah.
But these are my sons now, and I'm like, come on.
I love it though. Like when you listen to it, you get that feeling like, okay, this is like a family. Like this is family legacy. Like this is a thing. And what's so powerful about it is you can hear you and your husband in that. So it's all these different artists on one track, but they're all the same person at the same time. Yeah. And so I think that's a beautiful thing that we talk about freedom and freedom of speech. I don't know anything that's more beautiful or more validating when your parents are able to kind of walk in your art with you.
Yeah.
And allow you to be, but then at the same time oversee it and be like, I got you, let me show you.
And even with the aspect of the that title album, Freedom of Speech, going to them and asking them to do this and understanding that, you know what, we raise them in the word. And the Bible says, train up a child, when they grow older, they won't depart from it, And so I know that time is coming to where they're going to come into their own in Christ. But in the meantime, we still going to be that example.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I still want you to be able to express yourself. And the beautiful thing about it was my sons expressed their joys, their troubles, and their pains through their lyrics. Even my other son, because on the last verse, my middle son says, drop a tab with it. And I'm like, okay, what did you mean by that? And he was like, remember that time I was out with my friends and I tried this pill that they had or whatever, and I came home barefooted and you were scared because you thought I was bleeding. He said, I was just saying how I overcame that. And I was like, okay, cool.
And that's freedom of their speech,
freedom
and
of their
testimony.
speech.
See? And it's crazy that when you listen to it, of course, everyone, when they see a piece of art or if they listen to a piece of work, they take their own interpretation from it. And so it's beautiful to see that, right? To see even within that song and even have that explanation. Like someone would be like, oh, that's cool. What did he mean by it? But to understand, he was giving you his testimony.
He was. So, when my oldest son, he went into saying how mama told me it would always be a new day, And then even when he came into the song, he was like, Mom, they sleeping on me. And I was like, that's my boy. That's my boy.
Yeah.
And so, I was just overexcited. But like I said, I knew Gifted was going to do his thing. But just to have the opportunity to see my sons do their thing. And I honestly didn't think the song was going to happen because they were always busy. My middle son's a new father. My oldest son, he's always around and about doing stuff. So I literally had to keep telling Gifted, like, can you call him and find out if the song's going to get done? Or I would call him up and hit him with the mama line.
Yeah.
Y'all going to miss me when I'm gone.
Right.
You will want something to
you
remember me by.
by.
So we got it done.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk Stronger.
Okay.
I'm in love with it. I love the Spanish feel. I love it. Soy más fuerte.
Yeah.
I am stronger.
Yeah. Stronger, the producer and I, we had two totally different thoughts when he gave me the track. He was like, oh, I hear like this little Latin vibe and all this other stuff. And no, he said Caribbean. I hear that's the Caribbean. I was like, no, I don't hear that. I hear like this Latin vibe. And Monica Trejo, she is phenomenal. She is phenomenal. So I knew that I wanted her on the track, and I knew that her husband is Latin, and I knew that I wanted that cultural feeling into it. And so when I first got that track and I heard it, it brought me back to the toughest time in my life as going into a young woman.
Yeah.
And that's when I was in New Orleans, and I was with my abusive boyfriend at the time, and I was sleeping in a restaurant with him, selling his drugs, and from sun up to sundown. And that was just a really, really rough time for me. The song is literally true when I said that, on the streets of New Orleans in the Basin Street Lounge with a clown that couldn't even identify my crown. It literally was the hardest time of my life where I was lost. I was literally lost. and my identity and everything, because at that time he had taken everything away from me, self-esteem and all that other stuff. And there was a really weak time in my life. And so when I heard the track, I was like, okay, this is screaming strength. This is screaming redemption. This is screaming you're stronger. So that's how that song came about. And I honestly only said two verses maybe. And I sent Monica the track and I said, go for it. Whatever you say, whatever you do, you go for it. And I told her the name of the song, and bam, she came back with that chorus.
That's an amazing track. So we've gone through self-identification, hope, despair, loss, re-identifying. Now you find your voice, now you're in your zone. And then we get to freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. Free to say and do anything that I feel that I need to say or do without restraint, without restriction, without hindrance, without judgment, without being guided by opinions or guided by religion or the systems of the world. Freedom of speech. So I literally wanted to say everything on this album. I wanted to talk about love. I wanted to talk about hurt. I wanted to talk about pain. I wanted to talk about victory. I wanted to talk about family. I wanted to talk about girl power. I wanted to talk about writing love letters to myself. Like, freedom of speech was all that. It was just being free in my art and free in my gift and free in my style, because people judge you on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Oh, she dressed like that, but she's supposed to be a Christian. Oh, she talked like that, but she's supposed to be a Christian. Oh, she liked that kind of music, but she's supposed to be a Christian. Oh, she fell into this sin, but she's supposed to be a Christian. Oh, she didn't do this right, but she's supposed to be a Christian. Okay, I know that God said all have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. So he already knew that we would make these mistakes. He already knew that these things would be challenges for us. But in the same sense, he also knew that if we stay rooted and connected to him, no matter how far away we fall, he's going to guide us right back into his light. And then when he guides us back into that light and he sets us in front of that camera or on that stage or on that platform, we have the freedom to talk about what we did without judgment or without opinions of what people saying, but simply because the Bible says and God says that he who the Son sets free is free indeed.
Yeah.
That's the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I'm free. I'm free. I'm unbothered. I'm free.